most perpetrators are also abusive towards their children, either psychologically, physically, sexually, or through neglecting their children, or forcing their victim survivor, the child's other parent, most often the mother, to do those things to the children. So most perpetrators are directly child abusive or child neglecting in some way. But even the ones who aren't, by doing that to the child's other parent, they are causing great harm to the child. It's kind of like if you attack the pilot of a plane and then you claim that your attack only harmed the pilot and had no impact on the other passengers. Well, of course it did. You've attacked the person who is in charge of the safety of everyone on board. And the victim survivor, those children are dependent on them for their safety, and you're attacking them. So of course it's going to have an impact on the children as well. So in my research and in the work that I've done, what I've really found is that children do so much more than witness what's happening. It shapes their whole life. It's like a web of coercive control hanging over the home. And when people leave the home, they have these little mini webs that kind of follow them around over their heads during the day, until they go back into the home, and then the big web's there again. And everything in the web is all the perpetrator's rules and expectations, and the things you have to do and the things you can't do. And the children are under that web as well. They are living with the control, with the rules. They know what they need to do to please the perpetrator. They know what will agitate the perpetrator, and they're trying to keep on top of all of the perpetrator's demands as well. So for example, one mother in my research, she said that when her perpetrator was at work, she and her daughters would be playing. The children were young, they'd be sitting there playing carefree, having a good time, and then as soon as it would be time for him to come home, they'd all know the atmosphere would change, and they'd all become very quiet and somber. And she said it was like we all knew that there were things that we couldn't do because it might upset daddy. And we all knew that, even though the children were just like 3 or 4 at the time. And when he came home, if he wanted to spend time with his children, then he would demand that they spend time with him, and he would say they were his girls, and he would expect a very affectionate response from them and see them as a kind of possession that had to respond to him the way he wanted. And of course children don't usually react that way. They don't usually exist to please their parent. They have their own independent identities, but he expected that they were existing to please him. But if he didn't want to play with them, and he wasn't in that mood to play with them, he expected them to disappear. That's what the mum said. She said it was like he expected them to disappear, to be quiet, to have no needs, to not mention anything that they needed or wanted, and just to sort of disappear into the wallpaper of the house and be gone. Which again is wildly unrealistic. Children can't do that, but that's what he expected. And so that's what the children were trying to do. So they were trying to calculate, does he want me to be affectionate right now or to disappear? And so it was totally distorting their normal, healthy, childlike behavior. And many children describe that. They say they couldn't be themselves, they couldn't shout, they couldn't run around, they couldn't just be carefree children. They were having to adjust themselves to what their perpetrator expected of them. Some of them were very worried about their mothers and were doing a lot to try to look out for their mothers. Others just tried to keep out the way altogether and to kind of remain invisible. And some children even align with the perpetrator because they sense that the perpetrator is the one with the power. They sense that usually their mother is the one who's under attack, and they perceive that it's not safe to align with her. So they will actually align with the perpetrator and then perhaps join in with his denigrating the mother, calling her nasty names, having no respect for her. Perhaps one mother described it as, my children just talked to me like dirt, and they had no respect for me because that's all they saw from their father, and everything I would say to the children he would deliberately undermine and override. So they just didn't see that they had any need to respect me. And indeed, I would say those children were making a calculation that it was safer not to respect her because that would please their very, very powerful abuser parent. So children are in such a difficult situation here. And even if they've never witnessed an incident of physical violence, it will be affecting every aspect of their lives. So I think it's best to call children in these situations co-victims and co-survivors, because they are victims and they're having to figure out ways to survive as well.